Another problem is that we're deeply attached to meaning. And so, I mean, I've mentioned this, but what I want to focus on is the fact that because we're attached to it, when we start questioning it, the person questioning it starts to seem like nihilistic or depressed. So like I'm sitting here questioning the meaning of life. And to a lot of you, and I can think of people I know who would interpret in this way, think, oh well, Ross must be depressed, or Ross must like have no motivation to do anything because he thinks life is meaningless, or he must be, you know, bummed out, or he must think that, you know, this is just like some frivolous game or something. And that is not the case. It's just that as humans we're attached to meaning and we don't realize that we're attached to it. So as soon as we question it, it's a bit like believing every word in the Bible is true. You know, it seems obvious until you question it, and you start to question, you realize there's no reason why every word in the Bible has to be true. The same goes with meaning. There's no reason why your meaning structures have any ultimate application or any ultimate sort of context. Does it have to be that way? Is it necessary? Can you feel that life is meaningful without that being the case? You see, this question is very subtle and very nuanced and very grey. But if we approach it from the standpoint of, well, I'm just going to live my life and I'm not going to think about meaning because that means I'm going to get depressed and nihilistic, I would say that says more about the life you're living and how you view what life is, rather than the fact whether life is inherently meaningful or not. Because why would questioning meaning necessarily be a nihilistic thing? That doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't know what to say. There's a very big difference between meaninglessness and ameaningfulness. Now, I know these are strange words. Well, meaninglessness, you know what meaninglessness is. Ameaningfulness means when something is neither meaningful nor meaningless. It's just a thing. It's just something without assigning meaning to it. Now, what I am sort of poking at is the fact that life could be ameaningful. We have to open our minds to that. There could be no ultimate meaning to it. And it's not. That's not to say it's meaningless, because meaningless is still meaning. It's just negative meaning. It's like you're assigning meaning to the darkness, or to the like depressive side of life, or to the fact that, oh, we're helpless and oh, we're here as humans and it's all suffering and pain. You're assigning meaning to that. Ameaningfulness wouldn't do that, you see, because it would realize that doing that is also applying meaning to something that might not have any ultimate meaning. Now, I'm not concluding that life has no meaning, or that life is meaningless, or that it's meaningful necessarily. I'm just saying that it's a very tricky thing, and I want you to notice how you're biased, because I know how people react to these questions, and it's very likely that me just questioning meaning makes you think I'm suicidal or depressed, or that I'm nihilistic, or I'm like bummed out, and that is not the case. It's just you're being very black and white if you think that. There's another tricky problem here, and it's kind of like a strange loop type problem, is that the more you invest in the idea of meaning, the more likely you are to get hurt when that meaning structure gets torn apart. The more likely you are, in other words, to be hit with like a wave of meaninglessness. And this is why meaninglessness is a form of meaning. For example, right, let's say that work is your meaning in life is basically your work, and that is it. You know, I ask you, what is the meaning of life? And you tell me, the meaning of life is my work. Right. Well, what happens if you're off sick? What happens when you break a bone and you're off sick for 6 months, not just a day? What happens when you get fired? What happens when you get made redundant? What happens when you retire? What happens to you? The more attached you are to this idea that the meaning of life is to work, the more it's going to hit you when you're not working. You're not going to be working all the time. And for that matter, what is the meaning of life when you're at home not working? You know, the more you draw that contrast, the more you're going to feel the downside, the more you're going to feel the meaninglessness, because you're attaching meaning, a lot of meaning, to the idea of not working, you see? And so craving, you see, this is how it goes full circle. Craving meaning leaves you open to a lot of pain, because as soon as you assign and equate meaning to something, you're also assigning meaning to the not something, but that meaning is meaninglessness, because it's actually coming from lack. You know, it's meaning because you're suffering about the lack of what gives you meaning. You see, so meaning is a very tricky concept.